there, model fans. Welcome back to Richard's Toy Room. And today, obviously, as you can see, we are going to do another model kit review and build. This is a new kit, or newish. I believe this is one of the ones I picked up this past summer on clearance at Hobby Lobby. And I'm sure it's not a new kit. I'm sure it was put out when this El Camino was new in '86 or somewhere thereabouts. But just, taking a quick peek through the parts before I, started on the video, it does look a little bit better than some of the other recent MPC kits that I've put together. Especially because I believe they were a lot older. Obviously, this couldn't have been made before 1986 because the car didn't come out till then. So we know that the tooling is at least, from, 85, 86, somewhere around there or later. And by that time, I think the model companies were getting a little better at making kits a little more, I don't know the word I'm looking for, like, not realistic, but a little bit more exact, a little bit better fit, and, more aimed towards the a happier experience of putting the kit together than some of the trials and errors that you have to do with some of these kits. So anyhow, let's take a look at this. This is an El Camino SS in 1886, as I said. Special bonus included a trail bike kit, and it's molded in red plastic. We'll take a look at that first. I don't know if this was included in the original release of this kit or not, but I've seen a couple of kits where they've included this motorcycle with the car. So anyhow, take a look at the sides here. That's basically a couple of features, but shows the same kit as same paint scheme as the box cover. And then on the other side, we have, looks like a little bit less fancy version of the El Camino there. So I haven't quite decided which one I'm going to do yet. I did a little bit of research online, and I did find a couple, just a handful, that looked like, well, I mean, this has some obviously extra parts on it as well, like these side pipes and stuff like that, which I'm probably fairly confident did not come on the actual car. But as far as like these decals and this hood scoop stuff like that, I did see that on quite a few of these. And from what I could tell, this SS had this more aerodynamic front clip here, and the regular lower model rung El Caminos, they were more Chevy-ish, for lack of a better term. They didn't have this aerodynamic look. They were just like more like the standard Chevy of the time. So anyway, let's take a look at what we got. We'll start off with the instruction sheet. It's your typical fold-out sheet here. Just two sides, but it's fairly decent size. And starts out with your little bit of information here that they usually give you, and then they want you to build you don't have to do it in this order. You can do this after, I suppose. But first thing it tells you to put together is the motorcycle, and it comes with plastic two-piece tires, which not a big deal on this, but I'm not a big fan of those on regular car models. And then they move on to the engine up here, and not too much going on there. And then the tires, and this has the infamous little pins that's sandwiched between the inner and outer rim. So the last one I didn't have good luck with it, so I think I might repeat my better luck performance where I put the pin and the inner and glue that in before I put the wheel together. And I usually have less wobbly wheels when they do that. Not always, but usually that's a foolproof way of doing that. Metal axle in the rear. Then the, one-piece interior bucket with, your seats, dash, and steering wheel. And then they give you an optional CB radio there. Onto the back. Moves on to the chassis with the exhaust. And then, popping your engine stuff in. Putting your suspension and drive shaft and axle in. Then they want you to put in the glass and the rear bumper. The tailgate is not functional on this model, so not that that's a big deal, but just thought I'd point it out. It does have clear lenses for your headlights, so that's nice. That makes them stand out more. The one thing it doesn't have, though, is the grille is not. It's one piece front clip here, but the grille is not perforated, and it's too tiny to try to do something like that by hand. At least I'm not going to do it. It's a little too tedious for me, and I'd probably screw it up. But that's not a super big deal. It's just more work. Body assembly and final assemblies, and then it gives you the options of what kind of decals and stuff you want to put on there, and pretty much that's it. Here's the decal sheet. It's actually a pretty big sheet here they give you. And you got those big swooping side panel, body side decals. I think I'm going to try to use them. They're silver. That's the only color they give you. So, I haven't had a whole lot of good luck with decals lately. And I don't know which colors this silver would go with. See, this is silver with red pinstriping around the edges. So obviously it goes with black, but I'm not a huge fan of black. I mean, it's just like so common a color to paint models that I usually try to avoid it unless it's something that just really stands out or just really screams to be painted black. And I do have a car coming up that definitely is going to be black. So, and it's also, it's an 85, but pretty darn close to, and it's a GM. So these would be the way I do it. I put my cars on the shelf in model year order. So chances are these two black cars would be right next to each other. Not that that's a huge deal, but I try to avoid that if I can. Anyway, you got a lot of SS ones here that give you silver and kind of white and a sort of a black, but it's like, I guess they're all like that. They got lines through the S's. So you can use those with their appropriate colors. So, I mean, obviously you wouldn't use white with white because you wouldn't be able to see them, so you'd use either black or the silver. Anyhow, so we won't spend that much time talking about these decals, but I'm a little nervous about using the decals because I've had bad luck with decals lately, but sometimes they work out good. So we'll see what happens. So, as promised, I wasn't thinking ahead when I got this out. Red paper mat here and red plastic on this. The rest of it's not, so it'll show up easy, but I hope you can see this. Maybe this might help a little bit. Kind of see some of the motorbike parts here. Looks pretty simple, straightforward. Here's the metal axle. You don't need to see that. There is the one-piece front and rear windshield, and then you got your headlights, and looks like those are probably front marker lights down here. Probably hard to see in this bag. And then they do give you red taillights, which is also a nice little feature. And here's the chrome tree. You've got two different rims on here. I haven't looked that close to see which ones are which. I think these are the factory rims. I'm not sure what these ones are. I'd have to do a little research and see if these are custom or if they're an option. And then they give you the rear bumper, which is where the taillights went on these this iteration of the Chevys. And just a couple other little chrome pieces there. Nothing major. I mean, that's all the chrome you got in the whole car and the whole model kit. Let's grab the other molded piece that's not molded in white. It's molded in this, I think on the box they call it metallic black, but I mean this is more of a charcoal gray color to me. And you got a decent number of pieces in here. And it's not like overwhelming amount, but we'll take a look at these. So besides the body and the chassis, this is all the pieces that are in the kit. So let's grab this one here real quick. Here is your seats, and I think that might be a spoiler, I'm not sure. And your dashboard. And the dashboard does have detailing on the gauge and the radio and stuff like that. I didn't notice any decals for them, so it'll be all hand painting. Here are your wheel backs. You got a master cylinder and booster. Looks like a battery, probably a coolant overflow or a washer bottle or both. Some radiator and firewall parts, your hood obviously. The hood scoop or whatever you want to call it is a separate piece that mounts on top of the hood. It's not functional or anything like that. It's just a bulge in the hood for that look they like to do back then. There is some detailing on the firewall and radiator firewall and stuff like that. So it's a decent kit from what I can see so far. Here's your like springs and drive shaft and exhaust parts. Got a catalytic converter in this. This one's got your front clip like I showed you with the grill that's molded in, not open. Here's your custom side pipes, and here's the pipes that come off the engine that go to them, and your hood scoop thingy. This is your tonneau cover, optional. You can put it on the over the cargo bed. Sometimes I like to paint those up and use them. Right, I don't glue them on, but I use them as optional. Here's your interior, and it's got a decent amount of detail and door panels, but nothing that deep or enough that you can pick out a couple of things. So we'll have to do a little bit of research on that, see if that was like a two-tone or anything. Last tree you got here is pretty much all engine parts. Might be a couple of other tiny things on there not, like here's the CB. And looks like maybe your front axle pins. But mostly engine stuff. Oh, before I forget, you get 4 hollow rubber tires, and they have Blackwall on one side, and then they are Goodyear outline white letter GT radials on the other side, which I will use the white letters. And finally, you've got this chassis with the body. So you've got a one-piece chassis, and that's decent. It's got the gas tanks, got a lot of textures and underbody moldings. Wheel wells, part of the frame here. It's got also a sway bar in the front. And finally, the one-piece body. It's pretty decent. The bed's molded in, as well as the tailgate, like I had mentioned earlier. You've got sun visors molded in on the inside of the roof, door handles and locks, some reflectors and side moldings, and that's about it. Pretty decent. So there you go. That is the review of the kit. So the next thing will be a at least one update, possibly more depending on how it goes. So stay tuned for that. Well, hey there, and I was actually intending to do the final reveal on this. I went back and checked my video to make sure that I wasn't going to repeat myself in whatever I had done for the update. Turns out, I guess I forgot to do an update on this one. I apologize for that, but I'll do kind of the best I can, and then we'll just go right into the final turntable thing here. So I did make some notes, so bear with me, and I will try to show you what I'm talking about. Well, the first thing with this kit is it came with this mini bike with a this thing here. I painted it black. Came with a couple of brackets, and you're supposed to mount it in the bed of the El Camino here. And my advice is take this mini bike here and throw it in the garbage. This is absolutely the worst model kit that I have ever had the experience of building. I mean, this thing is just horrible. Nothing fit right on this. I mean, absolutely not one part fit right on this. There's no rhyme or reason where things are supposed to go. No mounting pins. No, I mean, the instructions were vague. Not only that, but the parts didn't even fit right. I mean, like, when I mean fit right, I mean like a left and a right part didn't match up, and like the fenders, like one side's longer than the other. I had to trim it to make it even, and it was just a nightmare, a virtual nightmare. Well, not a virtual nightmare, a literal nightmare. Well, anyway, it was a nightmare. I would never ever build this stupid mini bike again. If I got another kit that they gave it as a bonus, I would, well, I don't think I'd throw it away. I'd just throw it right into my parts bin of extra parts, because this thing is terrible, useless. I can't say enough bad things about this mini bike. And it's too bad, because the actual kit itself wasn't that bad. I mean, it had it had a few flaws in it, but oh my God, I mean, I built the mini bike first because it was the first thing in the instructions, and oh good Lord, I mean, I just had to put this thing away and, like, go work on something else. It's that bad. Seriously, this thing is horrible, and I did the best I could with it, but I mean, just looking at it just still makes me mad. It's a piece of junk. So anyway, let's move on to the actual model itself. And since I didn't do an update on you, I will try to get a little bit closer pictures of, like, the engine and the interior as best I can, since it's already assembled. Since we're talking about that right now, one thing I did have a problem with was the hood getting in there properly. It has two little lugs, if you want, with holes in the wiper cowl there, and so the hood must be just slightly a little bit warped or something, because if you put it in, it fits good, but if you put it in, it wants to pop up here and it won't stay down. So I put a drop of super glue on the pin and let it dry, and then it would stay down like that. I'm almost leery about popping it off again, because I think, that super glue may have, I just put a drop on there, and if it may have already done its function. If I pull it up, it may not sit back down again, so I may have to repeat the process over and over again. Besides that, the front wheels, they're a little difficult to get on there straight. They're just like the little pins that fit inside between the wheels, the wheel halves, if I remember right, and then just go into a hole in the frame. But they didn't want to. If I would have just put them in straight, into the way that the hole is made, they would be all cockeyed and crooked. They may even be now. I'm not sure. No, they look okay. But I mean, I had to like mount them properly, to where how I wanted them to sit. And I mean, they're just barely hanging on. In fact, when I was working on it, one of them fell off and I had to glue back on. That's how, just like a minuscule amount of peg to work with to get them to sit straight. Let's see, the other problem I had was getting the interior bucket to fit in there properly. Now, I'm not sure if it has something to do with the windshield glass being too big or sitting down too far in the cowl. But what I ended up doing was I took the dashboard, and the dashboard sits into like a little notch on each side. It's a common way that they do some of these one-piece buckets. The dashboard sits in two little notches on each side of the car here in the front. And what I did was I shaved those down on the side so that they would go down farther in, but I also had to sand the bottom of the dash because it's one of those ones that sits onto the center console. And so I also sanded the top of the center console, just enough so I could get it, I had to test fit it a few times, so I could get the interior to sit in there level with, with the door panels. I think the one side's still a little off, but it's way better than it was. It was literally like this. Like if this is supposed to be how it's straight, it was like, I'm exaggerating, but like the front of it was dipping down, so there was like a big gap. And you can look inside and see the door panels didn't line up. Anyway, so let's see what else. Under the hood, there's a little air intake that goes from the top of the radiator area where the battery is and snakes over to the end of the air cleaner box. And it doesn't even show that in the instructions. I don't know why. It fit and the hood closes with it and everything, so I put it in. Let's see, what else? Speaking of that area, in the instructions it tells you to install the radiator and the hood latch panel. They're two different pieces. And they want you to mount it to the chassis, the frame part where the engine is, and then put the body down on top of that when you put the body on. But I found it kind of, I was a little leery about doing that because it didn't quite fit as good down there where it mounted as it did. There's actual bracket lines on each side of the fenders here where that panel fits. So I put it in the body before I mounted it down, and then I glued the bottom part in when it was all. Then I knew it was going to all fit right. But a little caveat: if you're doing that, make sure that you put the headlight buckets in before you do that. I mean, you can still do it because I did. That's how I know. But it's a lot easier if you put the headlight buckets in first. Like I said, you can still get them in there, but save yourself a little bit of headache if you're going to do it that way. Let's see, what else? This front clip on here, it's a separate piece, and you glue it to the body. And of course I glued it to the body before I painted it just to make it easier, but there's no locating pins. You have to kind of make sure that you got it even, with the fenders and the sides and all that stuff, so it looks right when you're done. But it's kind of one of those watch yourself there. Last part issue that I had, these mirrors. Now the mirrors they gave you had no mirror glass in them. They were basically like cups, and So I was going to attempt to cut out like some plastic and glue it in there, but that just turned out to be a real pain in the butt because they were getting real tiny. It was getting hard to sand them and cut them, and so I ended up just filling them in with glue, and then I, shaved it off till it was flat, and then I just painted them with the Molotow chrome pen. But the other issue with them was they fit like crap. It was really hard to get those to sit on there right. They just don't. They don't seem to be molded exactly the proper shape, at least not the mounting area. And let's see. I used this optional tonneau cover. I just painted it silver to match the rest of the trim on it. The bed doesn't open, but I thought that was a nice addition. But the last thing that really made me angry, and you'll see it definitely when I do the turntable close-up, but these decals, oh good lord, oh. Well, you might be able to see now, but pay attention to the passenger side when you see it do the 3D. I did the best I could to salvage it, but I put this side on first. Oh my lord, it broke literally into 5 pieces while I was trying to install it. It wasn't even when I was trying to install it. It was like just from putting it in the water and then picking it up because it curled. And when I unrolled it, it had broken into 5 pieces on the paper. So I was like, oh Lord, now what? So I did the best I could to line all the pieces up and get them to fit. There was a couple of areas, especially up here, where I screwed it up a little bit. And then the other part that was really bad on these is this decal on the side wraps around the corner here to go to the tailgate area. And I don't know what the hell they were thinking. This is like a compound curve, and I could not for anything get that to sit down right. I had to like kind of cut it a little bit and like kind of push it down, and I even eventually ended up sticking a little bit of super glue under the bubbles that didn't want to go down and just kind of tap them, hoping that they wouldn't come off of my fingers, and they didn't. And kind of the same thing happened with the hood here in the front. It didn't want to flatten down over this hood ridge. And I did use decal set, but I'm probably not using the best kind. I'm using like the Testors kind because it was the only kind I could find at the time. I'm going to eventually order some of that. I think it's Tamiya or something that people recommend as being a good decal set. But anyway, so those are the issues that I had. And I guess that's about it. So now I'll try to show you some of the other things. I'll try to pop in this engine bay here. Hopefully it doesn't mess up the turntable video. But in fact, while I'm doing this now, I'll show you the underneath of it. You can see I did some details under there. I didn't paint the gas tank on this one. I just left it black. And here you might as well take a little, well, you know what, I'll just do a close-up of this with the camera. Alright, so let me get the camera down here and do a couple little close-ups for you. Oh, the other thing is, with the kickstand on the bike, it doesn't fit in the this little tray anyway. That's why I didn't bother even installing it. So, alright, so like I said, here's the under the hood detail, and here's that little tube I was talking about right here for the air intake. And as far as the interior, how much of this you can actually see. I'm doing this, I'll just show you in here. So yeah, there you go. Oh yeah, I almost forgot this horrid little motorbike. I want to take a look at that. So I did the best I could with this piece of junk. Oops.